so she had lice. And then when she came home, I mean, she was infested. I mean, it was so bad.
Okay, so it's 5 after. We have one person online, Mary from Grand District. And then here in the room, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, except you'll have to be by the microphone, so that won't work. Okay, so we've got, okay, so.
You want us to be on the camera? Just
No, it does, okay.
I'm Bianca Cottam from Provo District. I work at a charter school.
And my name is Anna Curtis. I work for Granite District here in Taylorsville.
Okay. So I am good, because I'm recording it, we have somebody online and we have people in the room. I'm going to be hopping up and moving around and going on and off camera. So, and at the same time, trying to watch the chat if Mary has a question. So I may seem a little bit disjointed and I apologize up front for that. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started because I want to respect your time and you guys, all three of you were here in plenty of time. So this is, and you're all three new school nurses, so this will be good for me to know how to tailor this presentation for you. So in the past, we had a vision screening statute, but it was not mandatory in the state. It was voluntary, although a lot of schools didn't understand that. It was previously managed by Division of Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired, who come to find out doesn't work with children, they only work with adults. So when it was time to update it, Senator Eskimi is the one that helped us do this. And sorry guys that are in the room, I'm gonna be turning this way because that's where my microphone is. So maybe, and that's where my screen is, so I know what I'm doing, so I'm not ignoring you. So anyway, Senator Eskimi ran the bill 5 years ago, and so she was the logical person for us to work with. So she put together quite a large group of people, school nurses, educators, physicians, optometrists, ophthalmologists, attorneys, lots and lots of different people. And we came up with, I know which button to push. There we go. We came up with Senate Bill 143, which was passed into law in March. It completely revamped the old vision screening law, and we will go over some of the details on that. The rules were then written. We had put together a group once the Senators Committee was done. We used most of those people here at the Health Department because we, according to the statute, had to come up with forms and guidelines and trainings and different things like that. So I used most of those same people here at the Department of Health, and we created the rules that are shown there. So this is the committee of professionals that we had, 2 from the Board of Education, 2 from here at the Health Department, 12 school nurses, Friends for Sight, 4 different optometrists, Schools for the Deaf and Blind, Utah Medical Association, Ophthalmology, and Optometric Association. We immediately started working on the rules on April 2nd because we knew that everything hinged on the rules. We couldn't write the guidelines until the rules were finalized. We couldn't create the forums. We couldn't create the training until we knew what was going to be in the rules. So it all kind of cascaded. And every time we made one change, it cascaded and made changes in some of the other things. So we started there. We ended up having our rules reviewed by attorneys here at the Department of Health, over at the Board of Education, and then Prevent Blindness, who are the ones that basically have set the national standards for vision screening. So this handout, which is quite a large packet, it is the vision screening policy. In the back of the vision screening policy, it goes to the page that has the footprints on it, and that's on page 58. But if you're here in the room, there are some more pages that we added. At the end of the actual guidelines that go through pages 58, there are copies of all the forms we created and guidelines and some standards, and some procedures and things like that. But they weren't really great copies. And so after the footprints, you'll see that there are separate copies again. These are just duplicates. You've got them up here. These are better copies. So if you needed to photocopy them, they're also available online. I'll show you where that link is too, but you've got 2 copies of all the different forms and guidelines and what do we call those? Screening skills. form. So that's what your handout is. It was based on national recommendations by Prevent Blindness, several other national organizations, and there's a list further in my presentation. I'll show you who they were, 5 different organizations. We wanted Utah to be consistent with the national recommendations. So we were really pleased that Prevent Blindness was able to review everything, starting with the rules, and they reviewed the forms and they reviewed the policy as it was written a couple of different times. So we are consistent. I did another training this morning where I talked for 2 hours, so I'm losing my voice a little bit. All right, so the rules had a 30-day comment period that closed on July 15th. They went into effect August 1st. There's some few minor changes that we're going to need to make, some grammatical things as the attorneys here and over there and around the river and through the woods saw them. We had to make some changes and we didn't fix all the little things. So we will make those. It was, if we had made them before they were published, they would not have gone into effect until after school started, and I wanted them before school started. So they're not perfect, but they're in effect the way they are right now. And then we'll go back and make those changes and not have to worry about not having rules to guide our process in the meantime. So the major changes, which may not matter to you because all 3 of you are new, are that it is no longer optional. In the past, as I said, it was optional. Vision screening was not mandated, and now it is required in certain grades, and we'll go over what those are. You won't have any idea what I'm talking about with the Q90, but it was a database where students who failed the vision screening, you had to enter their name and their parents' name and their address and their phone number and their results, and what the follow-up was. It was just ridiculous. And it took a lot of time for every student up through, I believe, 8 years of age. So that was taken away. We found that nobody was using that data. It was taking all the nurses all this time to enter it, but nobody ever looked at it. So that was one thing that, even though we're giving the nurses more work, we're taking that part of it away, so they were happy about that. There are some reporting requirements still, but nowhere near as cumbersome as the Q90 was. We have divided vision screening into a tier 1 and a tier 2 vision screening. So tier 1, the distance screening, that would be what you're thinking of. If you've ever helped in a vision screening, that would be your distance one, where they stand 10 feet from the chart, cover up one eye, read the line, cover up the other eye, read the same line. So that's your tier 1. But we developed also a tier 2 vision screening, and we'll talk about both of these a little bit more so that you'll have an idea of what it is. And what guides the tier 2 is a form we created called the symptoms questionnaire. So we'll talk about that. And then the statute also required some online training modules. It specifically required that module B that I have listed there, volunteer training, be created. So according to statute, for a volunteer, for anybody other than a school nurse or other than a school employee to do a vision screening, they had to either be trained by a school nurse or view an online training module. So that's why that one was created. But we knew pretty quickly, that wasn't the only training module that we needed. We needed just how to set up a vision screen for people who didn't know how to do it. If there's for schools who didn't have a nurse, they need to know what and had never done one before. So that gives them a little bit of help there. And then module C is how to do a tier 2, gives you a little bit more guidance on that. And then outside entity, which we'll talk about a little bit later, needed their own training module. So that one was developed as well. So let's start with the charts. These are some charts, and I like to start from the bottom and work my way up. So the not approved charts. If you see the ones on the bottom, if you've got any of these old charts, you should get rid of them. So the tumbling E, the one next to it, the Snellen chart, those are no longer recommended, and it's because of the serif. So if you can see the difference between the Snellen chart on the bottom and the Sloan chart on the top row, the letters, if you don't know what serifs are, it's just the little curves at the end of the letters. They're not as they're not recommended at all to use those with the serifs. They want you to use a Sloan chart that is sans serif or without the serifs. So if you have a Snellen chart, throw it away. Don't use it. And then the hand chart, I know some nurses were using that, thinking that that would be easier for the students to mimic. It wasn't. It's not evidence-based, so we don't want you using those. And then the lighthouse chart, those are can be culturally biased. Not all kids know what the picture on the left is. Some of them may not live in a house that looks like that, and so they don't want you to be using those. So the ones that are recommended are the 3 that are shown on top. And I'm going to stand up and grab one or 2. For my friends in the room. All right, so not only do they have to be one of these 3 charts on the top, so the 3 they're talking about on top is the Leah symbols, the HOTV, so these are the Leah symbols, those are the HOTV, and then this is a Sloan without the serifs on it. But it also has to have the correct shape. So it needs to have this reverse pyramid on it because they need to be proportionately spaced. If you notice, for example, the picture chart, the lighthouse chart on the bottom row, how they are like columns. They go equally down. If you have a Leah symbol, HOTV, or a Sloan chart that is like that with columns, you shouldn't use it. You should throw those out as well.
Okay.
So it should be the Sloan, the HOTV, or Leah symbols that have this reverse pyramid on them. And it should also be a 10-foot chart. And it should say on the top that it's a 10-foot chart for testing at 10 feet. And Bianca, I don't know if you have one already. Do you have?
I don't know for sure.
I have one that I can give you. I don't, your students probably could use it, so I'm not going to worry about yours. So I don't need to be ignoring you, but that's all I have. So I want to use them where they can be used. Absolutely. Okay. Mary, I'm trying to watch the chat box, so if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Okay. So we went to School Health, who was a medical supplier, school health supply company, and said, I really like this kit that you created, but it's got some stuff in it that I don't want, and I would rather have, can you put together something specific to Utah? Well, they didn't do what I wanted, and they ended up putting together this kit. So they have a tier 1 kit that includes a flip book for 2040. That is for preschool students, and I have one up here if you two want to look at it. A sightline flip book, which would be for kindergarten students, so a separate chart. And then this distance chart, and it's actually this one right here, which I really like. This one I really like. So this one has the Leah symbols on it on one side. It's got the HOTV. It's got Sloan numbers, and then it's got Sloan letters. It's all in the reverse pyramid. It's small enough you can fit it in a computer bag, where these are a little bit large and won't necessarily fit. But their kit that they put together is $124.25. It was more than the kit that I wanted them to put together. But anyway, that's what they ended up doing. Then they also put together a tier 2 kit, which had the near vision screening. And it's all right.
So should we get one of those, you think, or what?
That's up to you totally. So this is their near chart. They have Leah symbol, Sloan number, and then this is Sloan letters. These have the words, so you know how far away from the eye. This is pretty nice.
That's pretty nice, yeah.
So this kit is the tier 2, and it's $53.25, those 2 pieces. Now, what I really liked is the one on the right. It's called the Near Distance Vision Screening Kit. This is the one that I said, I like this but I want you to create this without the glasses. We'll talk about the glasses and occluders a little bit later. And it comes with a DVD that tells you how to do vision screening. So I don't need that either because I'm telling my nurses how to do this. This is not what they created, but these are good charts. So from goodlight.com, you can get this kit for $70, or if you go through School Health, it's $81. It has the same chart that I showed you that the Tier 1 kit comes with, but they've got the same thing in a near one that I really like actually better because it's one chart, it's smaller, it's got the cord to measure, it's HOTV, lay assemble, and then Sloan letters. So those are so you've got the ones on the left, Tier 1 or Tier 2. If you buy them together, it's that price, which is not a break. It's not much of a break. But really, what you need could be just this. So the lay assembles and the HRTV both are charts that should be used for preschool and kindergarten students. Your Sloans should be used on students who are first grade and older. The HOTV and the lay assembles, these charts also come with a response card for your nonverbal kids. They can point if that works better for them. And these can be used on older kids who can't do letters. So a lot of our special ed kids can do a lay assemble or an HOTV. If not verbally, they can at least point to the response. With your severe ones, maybe not. They may not be able to do it. But you can purchase a chart like this that has the Sloan letters on it for about between $10 and $20. So you can meet the basic needs of charts for, I'm giving you this one, so you don't have to pay for that one. All you need to do is buy one more and for $10 or $20. So it depends on what. Right, I don't have any of the Sloan ones. I ordered them. They were supposed to come by today, and they aren't coming. They didn't make it. So you are going to have to get your own Sloan.
It's the Sloan.
Sloan. Reverse pyramid, 10-foot chart. So Sloan letters, 10-foot chart, reverse pyramid. So, but you can go, somebody at my previous one that I was doing this morning, pulled it up on Amazon for about $10. So you can find charts where you're only going to have to spend $10. If you want to get a really nice set of charts, you can do it for $70 through Goodlight. To me, I like the Goodlight chart, the one on the right, but it's not. I can't tell you which charts to buy.
And that's for the Tier 2.
That is for Tier 1 and Tier 2. This near and distant. So it's got both. It's got both. Yes. So where did I put?
It's right
Somewhere.
here. Are you looking for the box?
No. Yes, it's probably in the box. Yes, in the box. So this one on the right. What did I just do? I shut my computer and now I've lost everything. Okay. Oh, that was not a smart thing to do. All right, hold on, Mary. Yeah, so if there we go. All right, so the kit on the right, the $70 one from Goodlight is this one with the 2 flip charts. I like the flip charts. They're smaller, easier, more portable than the big one. I really don't care for the one on the left that they put together because I think it's excessive. But you do whatever one you're comfortable with, whatever your school is willing to purchase. As long as it meets that criteria of being one of those 3 charts, reverse pyramid.
So just tell me one more time, which one's for the kindergarten?
The kindergartners would be both of them on this one. So lay assemble, preschool and kindergarten, lay assemble and HOTV.
Okay.
And the passing line, we'll get to that, but while you're writing it down, the passing line for preschool and kindergartner is 2040, which is
Oh, gosh.
Okay, so the 2040 line, they need to get more than half correct on that line. With each eye, we considered passing. For kindergarten, or for first grader and above, it's 2030. And that's the same for near. Near and distance, the passing criteria is the same. 2030 for first grade and above, 40 for preschoolers and kindergartners. And there also is a 3-year-old preschool. If you have 3-year-old preschoolers, they'll need to pass the 2050 line.
So if you don't have that string, how far is it?
You look at the instructions on it. So I have here, for example, another one, and I bought this for like 5 bucks. Yeah. So this one says hold at 16 inches. So if I was using this, I would probably cut a piece of string 16 inches long and tape it to it, so I would know how far away to hold it from the student's eye. Okay, question on charts? Okay. Question on charts. Okay, so then the next step we did was starting to create forms. So we created a certificate, the referral form, symptoms questionnaire, an opt-out form, and an annual report. And we are going to talk about each one of those. So the certificate, according to the statute, and this was in the old statute, that any student less than 9 years old, so through age 8, had to turn into the school a certificate saying that they had had a vision screening, not a thorough exam, but a vision screening by someone before school starts. But this form can only be signed by a physician, an optometrist, an advanced practice registered nurse, or a physician assistant. And then also they threw in occupational therapist that specializes in vision. You'll notice the registered nurse is not on that list, and a school nurse is not on that list. So we can't do these forms according to statute, and we complained about that and said, there's no way we can track this. We don't have the manpower. And she said, yeah, I know. Don't worry about it, but it's staying in the law. So how we get around that is, in the statute, it says if the student under age 9 that enters school for the first time in Utah, if they don't turn one of these in, they need to have a vision screening that school year. Well, we're already screening preschoolers, kindergartners, first graders, and third graders. And so we're already catching most of those kiddos. So it's a statute, it's unfunded, and just do with that what you will. If you choose to track all your students that have turned this form in, and then you know you don't have to do a vision screening that year, you can do that. But you have to weigh which takes more time. To me, I totally would likely ignore this requirement and then just screen every preschooler, kindergartner, first grader, the other ones.
Do you need to screen every kindergartner?
Yes.
At the starting of the year, or just when you do your screening?
So the question is, do we need to screen all of our preschoolers and kindergartners? We're going to get to that. But the quick answer is yes. Okay. You do.
I was thinking just first through third.
Well, I'll show you. I'll show you what it is. Okay, so the next form, and these again, all these forms are in your handout, is the referral form. And this referral is a 2-page front and back. The first side is the actual referral part of it. And it you put the student's demographic information on the top, and then you put the reason for the referral about midway down. So is it because they failed a vision acuity? And if so, was it a near or a distance? We'll talk about near a little bit later. Or is it a automatic referral? And these are some of the categories that you can, instead of doing a vision screening, if they fall into these categories, we'll talk about this a little bit later too. Most of your kids are going to fall in this category. Would be an automatic referral if you choose not to do the camera, which we'll talk about. The back is the report from the provider. So whoever did the vision exam, the complete vision exam, we would love it if they completed this and returned it to the school. We know that that doesn't happen very often. However, if you look towards the bottom, there's a box that says significant vision impairment exists. I recommend referral to the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind. And actually, that's not the right form. There is another form. It's that form, but we added a section because not all schools are served by Schools for the Deaf and Blind or a teacher of the visually impaired. There's a statement on that. So if you download the form from my website, it's the current form that has that statement in there. because that's required by statute and because we can't diagnose, the only one that can tell us that there's a significant vision impairment is if we get this form back. So that number is going to be pretty low, but that's why this form is the way it is. Some of our districts have chosen not to put this on the back of their referral forms because they need it in Spanish. I don't translate. If you have somebody that translates, that's great. I don't. So you do however you need to do, but
Is there one in Spanish if you need it?
there's not.
So we should, if we have somebody in Spanish, we should ask them to make one. Just because I know we have about, I don't know, 5 or 6 people that only speak Spanish in our school, because I called one the other day, I'm like, oh wait, let me get our secretary.
Yeah. Right. So schools are required to provide forms in their native language. They're not my students, so I don't have that same requirement. But if you are able to do that, more power to you. And I've actually received a translation on the referral part of it. I just haven't had a chance to put it into a form yet and send it out. Just one of the districts had somebody that could do that. I really hate not having them not putting this on the back of it, because how else are you going to find out if that student has a significant vision impairment unless you got this back? But you are not required by statute to use my form. You can create your own. Or I can send it to you in a Word format, and if you want to put it on your letterhead, you can. And if you wanted to put it in Spanish or whatever language that you need, and you have somebody that can do that, I can do that. All right, the next form is the sample opt-out form. So the statute requires that the parents be given an opportunity to opt out of vision. So anytime anything is mandated in the state, they want to give you a way out. They want to give parents a way out because of the way our state is.
Yeah, I was going to say, because there's always a way
Yes, there's always a way to get out of it. So you do not have to get consent to do a vision screening.
Oh, you don't.
No, you do not, because it's a mandate, but you do have to give families a way to opt out. So you can notify, and you have to give a notification. So however you tell your parents about anything that happens at the school, it can be email, it can be text, it can be marquee, it can be newsletter, it can be website. You know, we will be doing vision screening on whatever date. And if you choose to opt your student out, contact the office for more information on how to do that. Don't send this form home, because you know how many parents will just sign whatever's put in front of them. And that's, we don't want to opt that many kids out.
To say we're doing vision screenings on October 7th,
Mhm.
just to let them know.
Mhm.
And then, you know, if you want to opt out, contact us.
Yep.
You don't have to sign a form to bring back to
do it.
So like if they don't opt out, they don't have the form to send home, you can still do the screening.
You can, yes.
Okay.
So consent is assumed because it's mandated, unless the parent contacts you and says, do not screen my student.
Okay.
Then you're good to go to screen them.
But they need a way to.
Yes,
To opt out if they don't.
they do. This is a sample. You don't have to use this form. If you've got a better way of doing it, that's fine. But this just kind of gives you the basic information that you should have. If you have families that opt out, it should be done in writing, and it should be done annually.
Okay.
That is not written rules. So if you know you've got a student, for example, your students, you may have several that parents say don't even try because they know they're not going to pass.
Yes.
And if you want to just make a note of that, and you don't have to worry about getting the form every year. Best practice would be getting this A form every year. But if you know that you've got certain students that are never going to want to do it, you determine how much work you want to go to.
So what school do you work at? It's just, I used to go to Horizon, which was all special needs kids.
Yeah.
Most of them are not perfect.
Right. So similar. I'm not familiar with Horizon, but yeah, like Dan Peterson.
Yeah, and it's just like Dan Peterson.
Yep.
It's just a little bit, it's a little small than
Yeah.
Dan Peterson. So actually a lot smaller.
All right, the symptoms questionnaire, we're going to kind of glaze over right now because we're going to take a lot more time a little bit later on that one. And then the last page is the annual report. So if you receive funding from the state, and Granite District does, You are required to submit to me annually a report at the end of the school year. So what school is it that you're with?
Me?
Uh-huh.
Treeside Charter School.
Tracy, you did not get funding, so you're not required to do my big annual report. It's not big, it's like 50 questions, but they're, some of them have 8 parts, so it's bigger than 50 questions. I would love it if you completed that, and one of the questions is on vision screening. So the top 10 questions are in my annual report that you can do either in my annual report or you can do it on this form. Don't do them both.
So this vision screening annual report are the ones that's in your, sorry.
Yes, it's in my school health workload is my big report that I asked from all the school nurses to complete. It is required if you receive funding. You don't receive funding, so it isn't required, but I would love it if you did it.
How
And
do
these
you
questions,
get funding? Can we get funding?
you can apply for it next year.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's an announcement that goes out. It's through Utah Grants. And it's matching funds. So if they're already paying you money, which I assume they are, they would be able to show that they've spent this much money. They should be able to get that much money. Well, it's not going to be as much as they're spending on you, but it's based on student enrollment.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So sorry, Judy, I can't answer the phone right now because I'm okay. I'm trying all my phones, trying to get through. It's a school nurse. All right, so if you choose, you just have to report to me one way or the other, either the school health workload survey, which you have to do, or on this one, which she has the choice between the two until she receives funding from the state. You would only do the top 10 questions. The bottom 4 questions are for those schools that don't have a nurse. Because their requirements are different, they don't have to do tier 2. We've given them totally different instructions on how to handle it. We're not asking them to report on quite as many things. So that's the difference.
For Treeside, you would ask us to do
You would do the top 10 questions, which talks about the tier 2.
Okay.
So it says right on there, you can't see that from there. But you would do, part 1 would be completed by the school nurse. Part 2 would be completed by the school if there's not a school nurse.
Oh, yes.
So similar questions, but not as many for schools that don't have a nurse. You have a higher standard when there's a nurse. I would expect you to report more data. Okay, questions on that?
Where do we report this stuff? Is that, you say
You-
on your website, but I don't know what that website is like.
I will show that to you
Okay.
at the end. Her question is, where's my website? And I will show you. Just
Sorry.
remind me if I forget. So on the top, you would, my email address. On the top of that form, you would just at the end of the school year, by June 30th, just fill this form out and send it to me. If you're using the school health workload survey with all the different questions, 1 person per district. So you've got somebody in Granite District that collects all the data, and I have 1 person that submits it in an online survey platform. Okay. All right, so here we go. Tier 1 vision screening. So this is what is mandatory in all schools. It's mandatory in preschool, kindergarten, 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th or 8th, and 9th or 10th. You can
Okay, so
do,
it is mandated in 5th grade. It's not optional.
that's correct.
It was optional before that.
All vision screening was optional before, and it wasn't grade specific. They
Okay.
recommended the same grades.
Okay. I'm only asking because our register lady, which she's pretty much everything, she was saying that the 5th grade was optional and that we didn't have to do it this
Well,
year.
I'm not sure where they got that, but yeah, it
They
is.
said, well, do you want to do it? And I was like, well, you might as well. So it's good to know that it is like required.
Now it is required. So if you have students enrolled in preschool, then you need to do those preschool students. If you have students enrolled in kindergarten, 1st, 3rd, 5th, you are required to screen those students. Now you can, if you got a certificate on those kiddos that are in preschool, kindergarten, 1st and 3rd, you can make a list and pull those out. You don't have to screen them because they've already had a screening. But that sounds like a lot of work to me. So where do you want to spend your time? That's up to you.
Yeah.
If your school has 7th or 8th grade students, you choose which one you want to do, or you can do both, that's fine, but you have to do a minimum of one of the other. If your school only goes through, for example, 7th grade, you can screen those students, or you can assume they're done in 8th grade. The school can make that decision. Same for 9th and 10th grade. If you have 10th grade students, you can also assume they're done in driver's education, because the DMV, before they get their permit, will do a vision screening. That is,
vision screening is the one that you say is not.
yeah, I know.
Okay.
But that's in statute. That's old, that just carried over. You can do more grades than these. If you wanted to do all the grade students in your school, you can do that. But you can't do less. You have to do these.
This is already a lot.
Well, actually, it can save time. You know, in my elementary schools, sometimes it was easier just to screen everybody, because I knew I would get a list from special ed. And if I did everybody, it was already done. And I wouldn't have, while I had volunteers, I wanted to just take care of everything. You just decide how it's best going to work for your school.
Let's do the basic screening.
Transfer site?
Yeah.
We'll talk about them too.
Okay.
Okay, any questions on tier 1? Nobody online is asking questions, so I assume you don't have any.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Notification, we talked about already. Parent consent is not required to do vision screening because it's a mandate, but notification is, along with instructions on how to opt out. So I've given you that sample opt-out form. You don't have to use my form, but you do have to give them instructions on how to opt out. All right, in your packet, there's also a checklist. It is the first page after the second copy of all the forms. So on me, it's after a green piece of paper. I don't know if yours probably look different, because mine is the original one and yours has been copied 2 or 3 times. So I'm not sure if they ended up putting the colors in there. So this is just if you've never done one. This checklist was created for nurses or for schools who had never done a vision screening, just to kind of give you some basic ideas and some clues. If you've done vision screening in the past, you might not need to look at that. That's optional. The next few pages are screening skills. We've got one for each of these, one for distance screening, one for instrument-based devices, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It should be the last several pages of your handout. No? There should be page numbers on them.
So we have the feet.
Past the feet.
Checklist for planning a tier 1 screening.
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes. And then turn the page. After that is where the screening skills start.
Okay.
So the screening skills just give you a little bit more information on how to do each of these. So there's one for distance screening, one for instrument-based devices, one for special needs students, and then the ones following that are specifically for tier 2. So there's one on near screening, one on color, one on eye tracking, and then one on convergence and sufficiency. They're just hopefully just a little bit more help. And then the final page in your handout is the links to all the vision modules, so that you've got those. And I will show you where to find the links on my website as well when I show that to you. Okay, per statute, volunteers have to either be trained by a school nurse or complete the online training module that was created, specifically the B module. Out of the 4 online training modules, B is the only one that generates a certificate. So you can send this link out to your volunteers if you know who they are ahead of time and say, go to this website, watch this, go through this training, print out the certificate so you know that they've already been trained. Or you can just train them yourself the next day. That's up to you. If you've never trained volunteers, I would recommend that you would watch that so you know what to show them. And that link, like I said, is right there for you to go through. This one is very short. It's like a 5-minute module. They are not videos. It's a Canvas course. So you have to read a page and then click next, and read a page and click next. So it's not like you could put it up in a room and push play. It's not set up that way. But just go through it so that you know, because your nurses, you can just turn around and just explain to them. It's very simple.
Should we do that certificate? Should we get the certificate?
It doesn't matter. You don't send them to me.
Oh,
So you just,
it's more like
But if parents do at home,
Mhm.
they can
Then you can
Bring it
collect
to
them
you now.
yourself so that you know that they went through it correct. Okay, occluders. So according to national guidelines, I'm starting from the bottom up. You should not be using hand, paper, and cut. Well, actually, that's what everybody uses. What they are recommending are adhesive patches. So the amblyopia patches that you stick over the kids' eyes, which I don't like.
I feel like
Um,
it's expensive too.
It's expensive. They're about $20 a box of 25. And then tell me how a kid with autism
Yeah.
is going to react when you pull that sticker off and stick to their other eye. No, I really don't like this idea, but it's what's nationally recommended. The second one would be tape, which would be the same idea. It would be a little bit cheaper. The Mardi Gras mask, which is this, but if you use something like this with glasses, you've got to clean them in between each student. The paddle occluder is the picture on the top center with the little like lollipop. Same thing, you would have to clean those in between each use. That sounds like way too much work. And the paddle occluder and the occluder glasses at Mardi Gras, let's see, so the glasses are approved preschool through age 10, and then the paddle occluder and the Mardi Gras mask are approved for ages 10 or over. These are the occluder glasses, so they usually come in a set where one side is open, the other side is either black or frosted. So you would put this pair on to screen this eye, then you would change and wear this pair to test this eye while this one. Then you have to stop and clean it in between each use. It just seems ridiculous to me. So were I in schools doing a screening, I would be using hand, paper, or cut. I just have to tell you what the national recommendations
Okay, so we
are. Yes. So one thing that we like that I have used for years that I like is get a packet of construction paper and get your paper cutter and cut it in half and then cut it in half and then cut it in half and then cut it in half. And it gets down to about that size. And you can get a stack of this many patches out of one package of construction paper. It's not really heavy, so you don't have to worry about like cardstock I would worry about because it would have really pointed edges. And it's thick enough that they wouldn't be able to see through it. So construction paper works really well. If you have the, yeah. And if you want to, yeah. A lot of nurses don't even go to that trouble. If you use the paper, round the edges so that there's not rounded edges.
That way you're doing 600 students or more.
Right.
I mean, if guys
I did 5,000 patches a year. There's no way I would have been able to take the time to round all those edges. And I never had an eye injury in 16 years at the school. So just so you know, if you use hand or paper, make sure they know not to press the eye. Hold it. Yes. So I tell them just to hold the piece of paper and touch their nose with it. If they wear glasses, it goes over the glasses. If they're students who wear glasses, you would screen them with their glasses on, unless those glasses are for your vision. We want to screen them with the best vision possible. We want to give them every opportunity to pass. So here's the passing criteria. If you have 3-year-old students in your preschool, they need to get more than half correct on the 2050 line. Ages 4 and 5, so preschool, older preschool kids in kindergarten have to get more than half correct with either eye. At the 2040 line, and those first grade and older would have to get more than half correct on both lines or both eyes for that to be passing. So if you have the student go through the first 3 characters, these are called optotypes. So if they go through the first 3 optotypes, whether it's the lay symbols or the letters or the numbers, if they passed all 3, you know that they passed. So you don't need to keep going. They've already passed with that eye. And then also, if they go to the first 3 and they fail them all, you know they're not going to pass that line. So I would stop. Just use whatever shortcuts you can. I had another thought that just flew out of my head. It'll come to me eventually. This passing criteria, the passing lines is the same for near and for distance. as are the chart recommendations, near and distant. So rescreening, determine how you're going to handle that. What has worked well for me is I would have, this won't apply to you, your students, but for typical students, I would have in a school of 600 kids, I would have 7 or 8 lines set up. A school of 1,300, I would have 10 or 12 lines set up. Tape the chart to the wall. I would, with a blank piece of paper, I would put something underneath whatever the passing line was. So only it would be the letter, typically for the first through whatever the passing line is. I would so that it doesn't get too confusing. And if you're doing, you can do a couple of different ways. So you can, when you're doing the math lines, you can isolate one line. You cannot isolate one character, though. So have them go through, have them, this is what I had forgotten that I was going to tell you. So I will have them go through the chart, cover up one eye, and read me that line. So they would cover up one eye and read me that line. Then I would say, okay, switch eyes. And then I would tell them to read it backwards. That way they won't, it's not as likely that they will memorize it. So for the mass screening, I would only have that one line there. If they didn't pass, I would send them either to a rescreen line or write their name down and get them another day and rescreen them. The rescreen, it depends on.
Because we're having those people come in, then maybe just send them to.
If you have the volunteers, I do it that day.
Okay.
Because that eliminates what you're going to have to do on follow-up days. So the rescreen line, you would have a full chart and find out where exactly that student can see with each eye. So we screen both eyes, one eye and then the other. You don't screen the 2 eyes together, one eye and then the other eye. We need to find out where, if they aren't passing the line that they're supposed to, where they do see. That can be done that same day. It can be done later. So if you don't have enough volunteers, just have somebody write down all the names that don't pass, along with the names of the kids that are absent, because you know you will always have kids that are absent that day.
Yeah.
Then you go and you pull them out on a later date. They don't know whether they're being rescreened because they failed or because they were absent. Because sometimes they get, you know, when they hear fail, that triggers something in some kids. So you don't have to say, yeah, so-and-so failed this test, so we got to go do it again. Don't do that. We don't want to stress any of the kids out. If you're gonna, so those are a couple of different ways you can do the rescreening, either the day of the mass screening or another day. If you do it another day, it should be within 30 days of the original vision screening. Still no questions from our online folks. I hope they're still there. Okay, instrument-based screening. So here's what they used to call the cameras. They're not really cameras, and so we're trying to get away from that term. We're calling them instrument-based devices. So the SBVI, when they managed the vision screening, they're the one, they had cameras that they would take out in the community. They would help you with it. They would loan them to you. The cameras did not come over to me with the responsibility. And I know that there's some cameras, see, I'm still calling them too. There's still some of these devices out in the community. And when they want them back, they will come and ask you for them. So you can keep using them as long as you've got them, but it's at your expense.
Are those the little things that they just point at your face, the cameras?
Mm-hmm.
Like doctors have them now.
Yes. Yeah. And they're really good, but what we're trying to get in our vision screening is an acuity. So the 20/30, 20/40, and most devices don't do that. They give you things like possible myopia, hyperopia.
Yeah.
They can be very helpful tools, but the chart is still the gold standard. So anybody who can do a chart, you should do a chart with them. Your kids, probably most of them can't do a chart. So it's appropriate to use those devices on them. The national recommendations are that these devices only be used for preschool and kindergarten and students who cannot be screened any other way. So that's where your kids fall into it. But they should not be used for a mass tier 1 screening on typical kids.
So on typical kids, it should be
a chart, except for kindergarten and preschool.
But at your school, if you have, because I know we have a few that are like nonverbal or special needs.
You could use it on them.
Okay.
If you want, now these devices are very expensive.
One and I just don't.
Probably don't.
Those kids. So
They're around $8,000 just to
Yeah.
purchase them, and then the upkeep is more. So church is still the gold standard. You can use them if the student is untestable due to a disability. So if you want to use it. If using this particular brand, the Spot, you really should verify the results with a second and sometimes third screening using it because they've been found to be pretty inconsistent. Should not be used for mass screenings for first grade and higher. This is based on, everything is based on data, trying to make everything evidence-based. And this is the quote from the article. Sufficient high-quality, peer-reviewed, published research is currently unavailable to recommend instrument-based vision screening for children ages 6 and older. So it doesn't mean it doesn't work, and it doesn't mean it's not good. There's just not data to support its use. These are the 5 organizations that we took all their research and compiled our guidelines from. So the primary one was Prevent Blindness, and I just call them Prevent Blindness because it's a lot easier to say than National Center for Children's Vision and Eye Health at Prevent Blindness. They're the main people that set the standards for vision screenings in schools, but also the American Academy of Pediatrics and American AAPOS, the American Association for Pediatric Ophthalmology and Strabismus, American Academy of Ophthalmology, and American Association of Certified Orthoptists. So those are the ones that have, written the guidelines, the national guidelines, and that we're trying to follow. If you use instruments, I'm not going to help you do it, and I'm not going to pay for it, but you can do it at your own expense. And they are very helpful tools in certain situations. But it's also appropriate to send an automatic referral for students that you couldn't screen on. So before we get into the automatic referral, when a student doesn't pass, you should send the referral out. We've given you a form that you can use, and it should be sent out within 30 days of the screening. But here we're going to go into the automatic referral. According to those 5 groups on the previous page, these are things that you don't even really need to do a vision screening on. You can automatically, when on the referral, there's a box to check if you are automatically referring kids because they have any of these things. Readily recognized eye abnormality, a known diagnosis of a neurodevelopmental disorder, which is most of your kids, systemic diseases known to have associated eye disorders, a family history of a first-degree relative with strabismus, amblyopia, or a hyperactive error, a student history of premature birth and low birth weight who has not already had a normal comprehensive eye exam, or parents or caregivers who believe their child has a vision-related problem or concerns regarding their child reaching age-appropriate developmental or academic milestone. Now, there is a hiccup here because state special ed rules require that when a student is being referred for special ed or being the 3-year evaluation, they need to have their vision screened.
Okay, that's new tier 2, right? If they're being referred to special ed, they need to do the tier 2.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they aren't up to grade level
Benchmarks.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about this the other day. That's why.
Yes. So we're going to go into that, but you can say, I'm going to automatically refer this. I'm not even going to attempt tier 2 because they fall into these national recommendations. You are completely within national recommendations to do that. Or you can attempt a tier 2. We're going to go into how to do that.
Most of the people that have like kids like this, mentally delayed, they are going to
Yep, I know.
an ophthalmologist. So they're already pretty much covered in the fake.
Yeah, it depends. So, you've got your different degree of involved parenthood. So I have a daughter with Down syndrome. So for example, she would never pass the vision screen, but she was in every 6 months, she was getting an eye exam. I'm an on-the-top parent, but I know that there are parents out there who have 13-year-olds that have never had an eye exam and never been to the dentist. So
you're right.
They fall.
Okay, you're right.
Okay, so significant vision impairment, we're going to get to that other form, but this page came up first. So we talked about significant vision impairment. The only way we're going to really know if that student has a significant vision impairment is if they mark the back of that referral form and the whoever did the comprehensive eye exam tells us. If you know you have students already with a diagnosed significant vision impairment, so already services for schools for the deaf and blind. You don't need to do anything on them. What are you going to do? Say they have a vision problem? They already know that.
Yeah.
So don't go there. And also, I'll get to that part a little bit later. So follow up the documentation. So anytime as nurses, when we provide care, we need to, if we make a referral, we need to follow up. There's no set standards on what that means, but I recommend at least one attempt. You send a referral home. So then you make a second attempt to, if you did get the referral form back, to contact them and say, did your student go see an eye care professional? And if so, what were the results? And if not, was it because they couldn't afford it? Because I may be able to help. I don't know, Bianca, if you're aware, but if you belong to our National School Nurse Association, NASM, National Association of School Nurses, you can get, from a company called GSP, you can get as many coupons as you want for a free eye exam and glasses.
That's what our principal wanted me to ask you that. So tell me what it is.
You have to be a NASA member, which makes you a member of our state organization. At the same time, it's $129.50 a year, and sometimes schools will pay that for you because it's worth it. And then once you do that, then you go on the NASN website, nasn.org, NASN.org. Once you're a member, and then you just look up VSP coupons, and it'll take you to a page. You just fill out a form. They don't want to send you more than 25 at a time, but you can order 25 more, and then 25 more, and then 25 more. They have to qualify financially, but they're generous guidelines. It's 200% of poverty. And somebody in the family has to have a social security number. Doesn't have to be a student. It can be anybody in the household has to have a social security number. So they're pretty generous guidelines. A lot of kids benefit from this. NASN.org. Only available to members of NASN who are active members.
And that's $129.
$129.50 a year. Yes, well worth it, in my opinion. Okay, documentation is required. It's not in statute, but it's another standard of care. As nurses, we know we have to document what we do, but we don't tell you how you do that. You can do it electronically. You can do it on paper, whatever you, oh, I'm sorry. Let me finish this page, and then there's some comments online. Can be electronic or it can be on paper. At a minimum, it should include pass, fail, and if they were referred and what the follow-up was. You can go into detail. There's not a form that I created that documents how you do that. You can just create however it's done. If your student information system has that in there, that's probably the best way to go. But if you don't, figure out some paper way to do it. All right, now let me just lean over here to the online people. How often should students with these health problems be referred to an eye care for an eye exam? Oops, I lost my chats. So if it depends on what it is. So, and she's referring to, let me go back, these. So if it's the second one from the bottom, a history of premature birth or low birth weight who has not already had a normal comprehensive eye exam. It says that, so if once they've had a normal comprehensive eye exam, I wouldn't keep referring them for just having a history of premature birth. But if it's a known, if you're referring them because it's a known diagnosis of a neurodevelopmental disorder, and I would probably refer them every year. They should have an annual exam, and then let the parent follow up on whether they actually do that or not. So it depends on which one meets that criteria. Does that answer your question, Mary? Let me know if it doesn't. Then Karen has a question. Is it that they have to be screened when referred for SPED and every 3 years during eligibility, or is it that they, or is it that if they pass screener on the referral for SPED, they don't have to be rescreened every 3 years? Okay, so I think what you're saying, Karen, is, and Karen is not a nurse. She's with one of our one of our districts up north. So I have to answer this a little bit differently for somebody who's not a nurse. So the special, we're going to get to that. I haven't really gone into the special ed part of it, but the quick answer is it's every 3 years, and there's initial, they have to fill the form out on initial special ed evaluation, and then also every 3 years. I'm getting a lot of pushback from districts on that who are saying that that's impossible to do. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. So hopefully if that doesn't answer your question when we get to it again, as I go through the next few slides, it'll answer that question a little bit better. Okay, we talked about that. Confidentiality, we need to make sure that we stress to our volunteers that they need to not share what information they find out. And the example I use is if one of your volunteers is a mom working at a line, sitting with a student, and her little neighbor kid comes up and doesn't pass, that mom can't just say, oh, I'll talk to the neighbor when I get home and tell her that her student didn't pass. That's not the procedure. She needs to go through the nurse, if there's a nurse, or she needs to go through the whoever's been assigned. If there's not a nurse, the designated vision point person is what we're calling schools that don't have a nurse. They're the ones that have to collect all this data and then in turn send referrals out. It is not appropriate for those volunteers to be sharing that information, even if it's their neighbor, even if it's their sister, even if it's their very close friend. It's also not appropriate for that volunteer to be sharing results with the classroom teacher. You can share the results with the classroom teacher, and it's a good idea because those students might need some accommodations, some educational accommodations, move them up to the front of the class, but it should go through the proper channels. If they don't, it's a violation of FERPA. So we just need to make sure that our volunteers understand that.
We just have a training on that for FERPA or whatever.
Good. FERPA. Well, there is a FERPA too, but FERPA, yeah. All right, so tier 2 vision screening. This is where it gets really complicated. So this is the higher level of screening, and this is when it's done for special ed referral, the student failing benchmark, or if it's another student that the teacher might have a concern about or the parent might have a concern about. It would be comprised of a distance screening if that wasn't already done during the school year. For example, a second grader that you didn't do a distance screening on. Tier 2 would then include distance screening on that specific student. It can also include a near vision and may include color, eye tracking and focusing, or screening for convergence. This always will start with the symptoms questionnaire that we're going to. The symptoms questionnaire is in your packet. It is on page 42. That's the little shrunk up one. There's a better copy a little bit further back. All right, so the symptoms questionnaire. The teacher is the one that needs to fill the symptoms questionnaire out, not the nurse. If it's a parent concern, the parent fills this form out. And they should not, the classroom teacher or the special ed people should not be telling the nurse, do the vision, tier 2 vision screening without the form. I don't have time to fill it out. Oh. Which is what I'm hearing from a lot of districts. If they don't have time to fill the form out, then you are not required to do that vision screening. By statute, this and by rule, this form has to be completed first. It's going to tell us, the nurses, what we do with this information. So this form was designed to find if there were issues in the students. If you look at the form, there are questions on appearance. So does the student squint? Do they tilt their head? Is one of their eyes going wonky? And then what are they complaining of? Are they saying that the words are floating around? Are they complaining about headache or itchy, burning eyes, things like that? And then the bottom ones are the behaviors. Are they losing their face? Are they bumping into things? Are they riding up a hill or downhill? So we need somebody who knows that student in a classroom situation, and the nurse doesn't know this, all students. She very rarely will know the answers to these questions. So when a student fails benchmarks, does not achieve benchmarks, and that's first, second, and third grade. Only those three grades. Or student is referred to special education, or the 3-year evaluation for special education.
So special education at any age they're being referred.
Yes.
But if it's special, for only first through third that you refer?
Benchmarks.
Benchmark, that's right.
Yes. So benchmark testing is just regular testing that the students go through. They do it I've heard 3 times during the school year. This form only needs to be completed once each school year, but it may need to be done once every school year if the student continually has problems, but no more than once per
But
year.
you only need to do the screening once a year or every time?
Correct. Only once per year.
Perfect, thank you.
So the nurse, I want to stress this is not the nurse's responsibility to do this form. She doesn't do anything until she gets this form already filled out from whoever it is that's requesting this further vision evaluation. The teacher, if it's a benchmark, if it's because the student fails benchmarks, the teacher has 45 days to complete this form and get it to the nurse. So the complaint I'm getting is, all my students are failing benchmarks. I don't have time to do this. Well, you have 45 days, and I bet you don't have 45 kids. That's one form a day, and to me, that's not a hardship. So if you want to follow statute, this needs to be done. And now I know those are 45 calendar days, not school days. And I know there's Saturdays and Sundays in there, but I don't think you have 45 kids that you have to fill this form out. Then the nurse has 30 additional days to evaluate the symptoms questionnaire. Based on the answers on this symptoms questionnaire, so there are 19 questions, and whoever fills it out either marks yes or no. The criteria, what you do with it then, is on the back. I think it had to be pretty specific for schools without a nurse. So schools without a nurse have 2 options when they get these forms. They can do nothing. If everything is no, this kid doesn't have anything that looks like a vision symptom, then you don't have to do anything. They're done with it. Or if they meet this criteria, whether, between questions 1 and 10, if there's 1 or more yes, or questions 11 through 19, there are 2 or more yeses, that's for schools without a nurse. They can then automatically refer. Those are their 2 options. Schools without a nurse, 2 options: do nothing or automatically refer. With school nurses, you've got 2 more options. So you can still do nothing. You can automatically refer at any point, or you can do a partial tier 2 screening. We'll talk about what that includes. Or you can do a complete tier 2 screening. So you have those 4 options. Any one of those, based on what your interpretation and your nursing judgment, other people on our committee said, no, this criteria has to be the same for everyone, and we were very insistent that no, it does not. Nurses have professional nursing judgment, and they have to be able to use that professional nursing judgment. So it's different based on whether you're a nurse or whether you're not a nurse. And for you online, it's different based on whether you have a nurse or whether you don't have a nurse. And those schools with nurses are held to higher standards, so they can do a little bit more. They have the 4 options then: do nothing, automatically refer it, do a partial tier 2, or do a complete tier 2. And my chat box keeps disappearing. All right. Questions on that? Okay. That's where all the questions come. So if we get further along and then you think of something, let me know, because there are a lot of questions on that form. So we put together this whole vision screening thing, this committee. We thought of everything. We know we didn't think of everything. So if you come up with something that I'm not addressing today, let me know. We may have to sit down and reevaluate some things next summer after we've done it for a year. Just do your best for a year, is what we're asking. And then we'll see where that needs to go.
The criteria for the school nurse, because it says for schools.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right, so your vision is the first part of the tier 2 that we're going to talk about. So we've shown you a couple of charts. Schools without a nurse won't even attempt it. Again, they've only got 2 options. They can refer or they can do nothing. But if there's a nurse, you can do this. I'm recommending that if you have a student that you get a symptoms questionnaire on, that you make sure you have that vision screening that's current for this year. You do not have to do a second one. So if you did a vision screening in September for tier 1, and you don't get your symptoms questionnaire till March, you do not pull them down and do another tier 1 screening. You already did it that school year. That's the result you put down. But I also would suggest that you do the near on all students who fail benchmarks or are all special ed referrals. So you can use these kind of kits, the same passing line, the 2030 or 2040, and the same chart. So latest samples, HOTV, sloans are what you would be using for that. With near vision, you have the option of either doing it right eye then left eye, or one eye then the other eye, or you can do both eyes open together, because that's how most kids will read. But don't do both. Don't do right eye, left eye, both eyes. Do either right eye, left eye, or I don't really. It doesn't really matter.
I think that would be
Whatever
easier
you
for
like.
the
And that's national recommendations. They say one or the other, not both. You,
Okay.
you choose whatever you want to do.
Oh, yeah, you just child say,
Mhm.
this way would be better this way.
Questions on that?
Nope.
Okay. The next part is color vision, and you've probably seen the slides. Those books, you can buy the books for, they're over $100. They're pretty expensive. There are tablet apps or iPhone apps. There are some free ones out there. I'm not crazy about the free ones because they're multiple choice. You know, they give you 3 choices. What is the number that you see on this one?
We had to take this from hospital orientation.
Yeah.
Line color text. It was funny.
So if you do not have the equipment, then you can't do it. That's okay. That's all right. If you suspect that this student has a problem with their color vision, then automatically refer them. Now, there's nothing that can be done to correct a color vision, but you can accommodate those students. So if you do a color screening and you do find that there's a problem, I would definitely contact the parent and just let them know. And I would also contact the teacher, because a lot of what our kids are learning in the schools is color-based. And the teacher can definitely make accommodations so that there isn't so much of an emphasis put on the colors.
You should just refer.
Uh-huh. Not that they can do anything about it, and it's not something I would worry if they don't go in and follow up. But that is one thing that they wanted included in the Tier 2 screening. So the next one we're going to talk about is the eye tracking and focusing. And I apologize for you people online, because I'm going to show the ones in the room how to do this. And you're going to miss this. I will, after I close the presentation, I will try to show you online, but it's a little bit tricky. So eye tracking and focusing. So I'm turning my back on everybody else. Yeah. Well, but they're saying this, not that. Yeah. So if I leave these out on my computer, I'll remember that I need to do this after I take the presentation down. So take your glasses. If they wear glasses, take them off. Use 2 things that are different. Hold them about this far away from the student's face or nose, and tell them that to look straight ahead, but you're going to tell them to look from one item to the other. So as they're looking straight ahead, then you say, look at the purple pen, orange pen, purple pen, orange pen, purple pen, orange pen, and do that about 5 times. And what you want to see is their eyes going smoothly from one object to the other. If they start jerking and going wonky, that's a referral. Okay, that's eye tracking. That is called saccade. So it's a test that's in 2 parts. This one, the other one is pursuits. And so you one of the items, and you do have them look the same thing, but tell them to follow the pin. You're going to go around 3 or 4 times, and then you're going to reverse it and go clockwise and counterclockwise, or the other way around. Anyway, go around in a circle. Again, the eye should move smoothly. If they start jerking, that's a referral. So that's eye tracking and focusing. The next one is convergence. And this one takes a little bit longer, and I'm not going to do it as slow as they tell you to do it, but you use an item again, and then you hold it about this far out, and you really slowly, much slower than I'm doing it, bring it to the child's nose. And you tell them you're going to bring it all the way to their nose, and their eyes should follow it and converge all the way forward. If the eye starts going sideways, if they're not able to do it, that's a referral. Okay? Question on those? If you're not comfortable doing those tests and you think it might be that problem, refer them to an eye care professional. Okay? I'm going to put those right there so I remember. And then I'll show the ones online. We have outside groups that are wanting to come in, and actually this whole process of the revision of the eye care or the vision screening law started with a parent group who wanted us to go in and do this convergence portion on every student in the state, because they are saying that it's so prevalent, it's in about half of our students. That is not true. Data shows that it's in about 1 to 2% of our kids, and it's an important issue for those 1 to 2%, and it can be treated. Those kids may have had an issue with their learning because they weren't able to converge their eyes. So it's a legitimate thing, but it's not, where do we draw the line? Why is everything the school's responsibility to track? And it just wasn't possible for us to do this. So this was our compromise. So we have this tier 2 screening. Once a symptoms questionnaire determines that the student might be having issues with this, then we will screen those kids. Kids that were being referred for special ed, kids who are not achieving benchmark, then we'll do these screening on these instead of all our students. That was the compromise we came up with. Okay, outside entities. So Transfer Side is an outside entity. They were very involved from the beginning. They sat at the table with the Senators Committee. They sat at the table in my committee. They have done everything that we've asked them to do. And they are a great help. They are only in this local area, so we can't use them clear across the state, but if you live in an area where they are available, you can use them. Another outside entity that had been used in the past was the Lions Club, and they have not gone through the approval process, so they currently are not approved outside entities, with one exception, and that is the Lions Club in Ephraim. They have gone through the approval process. The problem with the Lions Club, there's a couple of issues. One is they want to use the cameras, the instruments on everybody, and they have to agree to follow the state guidelines, which means use them only in preschool and kindergarten, and use charts for first grade and older. And so far, they're not willing to do that. The second issue with the Lions Club is they don't have one central location that can go through the approval process. Each local Lions Club in each community is their own entity. And so each one of those has to apply to become an approved outside entity. And we've notified them all, but only Ephraim has returned the application. So if you live in Ephraim, you can use the Lions Club. If you live around here, Transfer Site are great. You can work with them. If you know somebody who wants to, somebody that you think should become an approved outside entity, put them in contact with me and I'll help them through the process. They have to be a not-for-profit because based on statute, they can't charge, they can't profit financially, and they can't promote a business. So there's certain criteria. So we're looking at not-for-profit organizations only and not a local eye care professional. Karen, I hope that answered your question when we were talking about the tier 2 screening and the special ed eligibility. If not, would you put in another question? And we'll try to get more specific on that. Reporting, we've talked about already, so you have to report it one way or another. It can be on the school health workload survey or it can be on this annual report. That's up to you. I would rather get the school health workload because it gives me all kinds of data. And you're on my list now, so you will get that. If you just don't want to do that, that's your choice, but you have to at minimum do these questions here. And there are the links for the online training. And I'm going to show you where you can find them. So there is my email address and my phone number. So if you need to get a hold of me, that's my work cell phone. It doesn't work in this building. I work in this building 3 days a week. I work in 2 other locations on the other 2 days. Okay. I have another phone that is my desk phone here, but the easiest way is probably my email address. So use that. Now I'm
actually writing down.
You do that, with the follow-up, you were talking about follow-up. What if we don't receive any?
Right. The question is, we send referrals out, but what if you don't get follow-up from the parents? You can't force a parent to take their student in for an eye exam. We know that.
So we just.
Right. The law doesn't, when the referral form doesn't say it's required, it's recommended. If you want to say required, that a complete eye exam is required, that means your school has to pay for it. So we
Okay.
worded it recommended, not required.
It's basically just sending
Yes.
the recommendation and let them do.
Yes.
Just maybe keeping documentation that we did that student record, right?
Yes.
For us.
Yes. Okay, so we've got a question.
Just
My screen is frozen, so I'm sorry. As if you'll just be patient with me as I work between two different computers here. Karen's question, 45 days from the date of benchmark assessment or from the date the teacher received benchmark assessment data? It is from the date of testing. That's in special education rule. And then Mary's question, tier 2 was only necessary for students failing benchmarks up to 3rd grade. So it is necessary for what you mentioned, for students failing benchmarks, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, but it's also for students being referred for special education or being their 3-year evaluation, or for teacher concern or for parent concern. So not necessarily those 3 grades, but at minimum those 3 grades. So hopefully, Karen, that answered your question as well. The benchmark portion of it is grades 1 through 3. The symptoms questionnaire could be used for all grades from preschool through 12th grade if it was a special ed referral or a parent concern or a teacher concern. And then Mary, can I ask Lions Club to help volunteer? You can. After they have completed the outside entity approval process, if you're using a Lions Club other than Ephraim Lions Club. Only Ephraim has gone through the approval process at this point. Okay, if I click on, I don't know if you guys can see me online. Can you see my camera? And yes, okay. All right, I'm going to show you these two, the eye tracking and focusing. So you take if they wear glasses, take them off. You would hold up 2 objects pretty close to their face, on either side of their face. I'm using 2 different colored pens, but it can be 2 other objects. Have them look straight ahead, and then when you tell them to look at I'm going to call it the orange pen, and then the purple pen, orange pen, purple pen, orange pen, purple pen, orange pen, purple pen, 3 or 4 times. They should be able to smoothly move their eyes back and forth. If the eye starts jerking or go wonky, or if they had large body or large head movements, that would be a referral. If everything goes smoothly, they pass that. That's saccades in eye tracking and focusing. The next part is pursuits, where you use 1 item, and again, have them hold their head straight and have them with their eyes just follow the object counterclockwise or clockwise, and then reverse the direction. And again, shouldn't be large head or body movements. They shouldn't have jerky eyes or eyes going crazy. If they do, that would be a referral. The convergence test would be, let's see how best to do this so that you can see it. Hold it quite a ways and go very slow, much slower than what I'm showing you. As you bring the object to your nose, and the eyes should be able to converge all the way up. Mine are starting to go wonky because I've been talking for 4 hours and I'm a little bit tired. But they should be able to get to right up at the nose with the eyes crossing and converging. If they don't, that would be a referral. Questions on that now that you've kind of seen? All right. Good thing I had 2 computers up because I think we're over on this computer now. I don't have any more presentation. I've gone through it, but I'm happy to stay here and answer any questions. So online, if you have questions, put them in the chat box. And those of you in the room, if you have questions, just ask them verbally, and we'll try to answer everything. If you know everything you need to know, then you're good to go. And I thank you for attending.
If we have questions as the process starts to go, for tier 2 and stuff, we can.
Absolutely. Her question was if she gets into the vision screening, and then has questions, she can contact me. And yes, absolutely, you can contact me at any point with questions on this. I am answering questions for about 1,000 schools right now, so I may not be immediate in my response, but I will respond. If I received a question, I will respond. If you sent me an email and I don't respond within about 3 days, I didn't get your email. I'm really good about responding, other than if I'm on vacation, and I will have a vacation on my email, a reminder on my email, so that if it doesn't bounce back to you because I'm on vacation, you should hear back from me within 3 days at the latest. Okay, here's another question. Karen is asking, can the district choose which benchmark assessment to use to trigger the 45 days, or must it be the first benchmark of the year? The district can choose that. They only need to do the symptoms questionnaire once per year, and if they want to wait till the second one, that's fine. However, keep in mind that if they're failing because it's a vision issue, that student has lost 2 or 3 months of being able to see better. So that's up to you. Then Mary has a question. Have administrators been informed of the change in the vision screening rules? I have presented to special ed directors, charter school directors, literacy directors, 9 presentations to school nurses, and I'm recommending that school nurses send an email out to their staff and tell them about this with the symptoms questionnaire attached. And just say, the law changed. If you want a student screened for anything more than what the mass distance screening is going to be, you will need to fill this form out and get it to me. Because there's no way I can inform every school employee in the state. I have done everything I can think of, but I know I didn't reach everybody. So now we have to put it out to the nurses at the local level to let your teachers know that they need to do this. Although special ed directors have been informed, and literacy directors have been informed, and charter school directors have been informed, and the nurses have all been, that have attended my training. So I've made every effort. Any other questions? Can you review what happens if the school nurse determines that the symptoms questionnaire does not reflect the need for a tier 2 screening? Yes. So schools with a nurse have the 4 options. So the nurse receives the symptoms questionnaire within 45 days of whatever triggered it. The nurse then takes her 30 days to evaluate which of those 4 things she's going to do. She's going to either, and I apologize for our male nurses out there, I use the pronoun she, but the nurse will evaluate the symptoms questionnaire and determine if they're going to do nothing. Then they would just, on the form, likely, there's a place on the form for the nurse to document what they did, whether they did nothing, whether they did a tier 2, a partial tier 2, whether they did a full tier 2, or whether they did a referral to an eye care professional. It should be documented. But at that point, if the answers are no, the nurse is not required to do anything else, but just document that the answers were no, no further evaluation was necessary. Any other questions?
I think, yeah. I have questions. I'll just email once we start.
Okay, last question. Do we have a copy of my PowerPoint? You do not, but I'm going to have the list of names. I know who has attended here, and the nurses who attended. I sent out a copy of my PowerPoint on the listserv, but it may have been before you two were included.
No, I got it.
You did get it?
But I couldn't print it out.
Okay. So those that attend, I don't like sending it out until we've done the presentation because there'll be too many questions that will be answered in my presentation. Okay. So I'd be happy to send that to you, Karen. I'll do that.
I got it forwarded from this.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? I want to be on that beach right now. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for attending, and then let me know if you have any other questions. I'm happy to answer as I can.